Welcome to the deep dive. You know that feeling, don't you? That little persistent whisper that life's moving fast like a speeding train and maybe you're stuck at the station, watching everyone else kind of pull away. That sense of being fundamentally behind. That nagging thought, I should have figured things out by now.
hmm
Especially when you look around and it seems like everyone else's journey is just, wow, perfectly aligned. It's a really isolating feeling. And honestly, it's something so many of us experience. It can spark real anxiety.
It truly can. Yeah. And what's really striking, I think, is how this isn't just some fleeting thought for many people. Our sources show these feelings often come from deep-seated societal scripts, these pervasive fears we kind of unconsciously absorb. It's an anxiety that's so widespread it makes us question our own worth, our progress, often in silence. So our mission today is really to dig into the roots of why this feeling is so common, and maybe more importantly, how we can start to, reframe and navigate these powerful emotions in our own lives.
Right. And it's this pervasive feeling that really gets us to the heart of today's deep dive. Why do I feel behind in life?
Hmm.
It's a question that, as we talked about in earlier deep dives on feeling lost, seems like a natural next step, maybe even a necessary one in self-reflection.
Exactly. It feels like the next layer of that whole inquiry, doesn't it?
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. I mean, we see the highlight reels on social media, we feel pressure from family perhaps, but where does this feeling of being behind actually start? What are our sources telling us about the deeper mechanisms here?
Well, our sources really dig into what psychologists call social comparison theory. It explains how our brains are basically wired to benchmark ourselves against others, often without even thinking about it, unconsciously. And this ties straight into something called timeline pressure, which our sources show isn't some biological clock, but a deeply ingrained cultural script. It's quite fascinating, actually. It seems this really intensified after certain big societal shifts, particularly post-World War II in Western cultures. That's when this very linear sort of sequential, education, then career, marriage, house success became the ideal, almost the mandatory sequence.
Okay, so it's not just what we compare ourselves to, but the fact that our brains are kind of hardwired for comparison in the first place. And then we're comparing against this artificial timeline, one that society basically built. So if you don't tick those boxes, in that specific order, you feel like you're failing somehow. Like there's this universal clock we're all supposed to be perfectly synced
Almost
to.
wow.
That's a powerful distinction to make.
It is. And here's something really insightful from our sources. They found that people who felt behind at, say, age 30, statistically, they were actually more likely to report higher life satisfaction by the time they hit 45. And it wasn't despite their nonlinear journey, but often because of it. It forced them to reevaluate, maybe find paths that were more authentic for them. It completely challenges that whole idea of being behind.
That's actually quite surprising. So the very act of feeling behind might actually be a catalyst, a push towards something maybe more fulfilling down the road. And you're right, this feeling isn't exactly new, but it feels, I don't know, magnified today, doesn't it? In our hyper-connected world, we just scroll and we see what look like these flawless lives, the promotions, the dream apartments, the exotic trips. It creates this immense pressure, especially if your own day felt like just surviving.
Absolutely. But what's so crucial to grasp here is that most of what you see online, it's meticulously curated. It's chosen. Our sources point to studies showing people actually spend way more time observing these perceived success posts than they do having like meaningful interactions. And that leads to this cognitive bias. It wildly distorts what average reality actually looks like. People don't usually post their breakdowns, do they? Or the jobs they lost, or the times they felt completely confused. There was one anecdote in our sources about Maria, who felt totally derailed trying to keep up with the perfect lives she saw online. Turns out the person she envied most was actually struggling with really deep debt. It wasn't what it looked like at all.
Wow. So it's essentially a fundamental mismatch then. We're comparing our own raw, unedited, behind the scenes footage to someone else's polished highlight reel. How do we even start to level that playing field in our own minds when we're just constantly bombarded by these illusions?
Well, this brings up a really important question that our sources push us towards. Instead of asking, why am I behind? What if the question we tried asking ourselves was, what am I rushing toward and why am I rushing?
Hmm. That's a profound reframe, isn't it? Because learning and unlearning old stories and actually healing from things in the past, all those really critical processes, they don't happen when you're in a frantic rush, do they? They need space. They need time.
Precisely, yeah. And if you're still questioning, am I behind? Our sources point to some really powerful indicators that you might actually be doing far better than you think. For instance, just the fact that you questioned your path at all, that signifies deep self-awareness. It means you're actively engaged with your own journey, not just, passively drifting along.
Right. And if you're still trying,
Yeah.
even when things feel incredibly tough, that's a clear sign of profound resilience, isn't it? It shows you have that inner grit, that strength to keep moving forward, even when it's hard. And if you genuinely care about your growth, if you're actually invested in becoming, let's say, a better version of yourself, then you are deeply conscious. Our sources really encourage recognizing that internal drive as a significant achievement in itself.
And crucially, maybe if you're setting boundaries,
Mm.
protecting your energy, your peace, that's a powerful indicator that you are actively healing,
Mhm.
that you're prioritizing your own well-being over maybe external expectations.
Absolutely. And finally, maybe simplest of all, if you're here right now listening to this deep dive, it means you're showing up for yourself. And showing up, yeah, that's more powerful than you might realize sometimes. Sometimes just being present, just putting one foot in front of the other, that is the victory. It's not always about the grand achievements. Often it's about that consistent effort day in, day out. Our sources even suggest some practical strategies to kind of reinforce this idea. Things like a digital detox audit, where you actively unfollow accounts that consistently make you feel bad or trigger that comparison, or even keeping a micro-achievement log just to reframe your daily progress by noticing the small wins, even the tiniest ones.
So recapping here, the really empowering idea is that being present and truly showing up in your life, however that looks for you right now, those are profound victories in themselves. We'd really encourage you to reflect on these insights, particularly that shift from asking, why am I behind, to maybe asking, what am I rushing toward and why?
Yeah, it really boils down to critically thinking about whether you're living by someone else's clock, those external pressures, or if you're genuinely focusing on your own internal growth. And reinforcing that idea that slowing down is actually key. It's necessary for learning, for unlearning those old narratives, and for real healing. Your individual journey is, well, uniquely yours. It's not a race. It never was a race against anyone else.
Exactly. So as you move forward from this deep dive, maybe consider this provocative thought. When life inevitably throws setbacks your way, getting back on track requires more than just wanting it, more than just motivation. It demands both strategic thinking and a really strong sense of self-belief, something to ponder.